Well, hello, beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of Married and Bright, the podcast. We are not affiliated or endorsed by Brightline Eating, and all content presented in this podcast represents our personal opinions and does not represent medical, nutritional, or psychological professional advice.
All right, what are we talking about?
This is your episode.
This is our episode about the body journal.
Okay. I have very little to say about this, so it's going to be on you to
Okay.
talk about. Who knows what my hair looks like?
Your hat off.
I did.
You've been wearing a hat on the mountain all day.
I was wearing a hat on the mountain all day. Okay, we're ready?
We're ready.
I took a layer off, guys. Now I'm cold.
I got my pajamas because it's bedtime.
Why are we recording another episode?
Because we need one. We need a.
Are your eyes going to be available?
My eyes are available. What time is it?
Are we doing this?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm ready.
Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of Married and Bright, the podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about the body journal, and this is where my information on that stops. So, Patty, what is a body journal?
Well, I was talking about the body journal in the AMAC. Was that this morning?
The AM accountability call
AM
for
accountability call, yes.
those who don't speak acronyms.
And it's really significant because as somebody who's been overweight my entire life, I never listened to my body cues before. And, I never stopped eating. I didn't know what hunger was because I was never hungry. And I certainly didn't listen to my body being full. So trusting my body was very difficult for me. And when I started the maintenance dance, I had a guide who was incredible and taught me how to listen to my body and to not decide, but to trust that my body's cues were accurate and that I could follow them and learn that sweet spot of the amount of food that I need to keep my body happy because I wasn't going to white knuckle hunger in this program at all. That's not what I wanted to do. And I think had I stayed as low as I got when I first lost all my weight, I would have had to white knuckle it.
Yeah. So I'm going to add a little color in here.
Okay.
So when you're in weight loss, the expectation is that there will probably be some hunger. It's not, like Patty
Because you're
said,
eating less food than you need.
right. So in order to lose weight, you have to consume less calories than you're burning. Like it's simple, very, very simple math in that. But I will say this, that what Patty's saying about the white knuckling is that it is never, when you are a food addict, when you have this addiction, being in a state of hunger where you are so hungry that you are uncomfortable can cause some people to break their line. So to go off plan, whether that's, quantities or eating outside of meal times or even going to flour or sugar, like those are things that can happen if people are uncomfortably hungry because they're not consuming enough calories. But so this isn't the color I want to add, but the reality is that so many of us coming from a food addiction place and being in recovery don't really know and understand what hunger is and what hunger looks like in our own bodies. So that's what we want to talk about, and what this body journal did for you is help you understand your hunger.
Absolutely. Because while Megan is correct and we do experience some hunger, and usually it's right before mealtime, which is appropriate, even in maintenance, there gets to be a point where your body the hormones are going to kick in and it's going to say, I need more food at any cost.
Right.
And so that's what I was heading off.
Right. And Susan actually did a great blog about this. It's called The 5 Appetites. It's, if you Google, the Brightline Eating vlog, she talks about the 5 different appetites, and that protein especially is one you can't satiate any other way.
No.
Like it's protein or nothing.
And it's the strongest appetite.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll stop interjecting, but I wanted to just give a little color to that.
Yeah. So I decided to start listening to my body. My guide walked me through it, and um, I was at a point where I didn't need to lose any more weight, and my body was giving me cues that I was hungry. And so to acknowledge those cues, I added food. Um,
But talk about how you understood them, how you came to acknowledge them, because there's a whole process in this body journaling that you went through.
Absolutely.
And this is for people, and again, like some people can recognize hunger. So like I'll say that too. Like I started working with my maintenance guide, and we had many long discussions about what hunger looked like. And like what hunger looks like for me, I can identify what real hunger is because there are other symptoms other than my tummy growling. And it's very obvious because I'll get
Just
lightheaded
lightheaded.
and, dizzy and start to feel like what I identify as like blood sugar dropping, because as someone who was a type 2 diabetic for a very long time, like that's what it feels like when your blood sugar is not regulated. So that's what I identify as hunger. But again, like I can pinpoint that very accurately and know that that's real hunger and not emotional or anything else.
So
But
that's what you would have journaled
it
to
would
do
if I
this
would have
body
journaled,
journal.
yes, if I would have journaled, that's what I would have done. But to explain,
Because
I want to hear the mechanics of it, because that's what people are going to want to ask. They're going to ask that. What are the mechanics
yes,
of it?
yes, because the body journal is you cataloging your hunger cues and you need to figure them out. Like Megan figured out hers are lightheadedness and dizziness and stomach growling. Stomach growling was a huge one for me, but I also had some other ones and I'll get into that more. But so we're journaling about our body, and it's a lot of journaling. You journal 9 times a day if you have 3 meals, but you're basically journaling for every meal. You journal. Are you
Sorry,
okay?
I'm fine. Just aspirated some coffee.
Okay, please don't aspirate the coffee. So for every meal, you journal right before the meal and you journal right after the meal, and then you journal about 2 hours after the meal. So, and you're just looking at your hunger cues and trying to decide if you're hungry. Because, I mean, we need
But
to
you're
talk
taking
about
an
this.
assessment of your body. Like that's what you're
Yes,
doing. You're
you're taking
taking,
stock of your body.
okay.
And you're saying, and there's hunger cues that are for everyone, like salivation. If you're salivating, that's your body getting ready to start digestion, because saliva is the first step of digestion and it starts breaking down the food. So if you're salivating more than normal, that's a sign that your body's hungry and ready for a meal. And more that what does your stomach feel like? Does your stomach feel empty? Does it feel full? Does it feel a little full? Can you feel any food in your stomach? What does your abdominal cavity feel like? What do your limbs feel like? Are your limbs loose and light, or are they heavy and lethargic? Um, uh, I should have looked at my body journal before I got here.
It's okay.
But also it's funny because, and so you take stock of your body and you write those things down. And
In that interval,
in the interval.
before, after, and 2 hours after, right?
Yes.
Every meal.
Yes. And before, like right before a meal, you should feel a little hungry. So it's not uncommon to have some hunger cues there. So the way I did it is I alternated pens. Like I did blue, black, blue, black, blue, black. So before a meal, after a meal, so I could delineate each meal
You
and
could
look at it
even
at a
do before a
glance.
meal, after meal, and 2 hours after meal, all in different
You
colors.
could, you could, but I did blue and black alternating. And then at any time I had a hunger cue, I did that in red. So I could see that
Oh,
very clearly. And that
or you could
comes
use
in
a highlighter,
later.
guys.
You could, but red was fun because when you start having hunger cues outside of right before a meal, like right before a meal, if you're hungry, that's fine. But like 2 hours, especially 2 hours after a meal, if you're already having hunger cues, like that's too soon. That's your body telling you that you need more food.
Yeah.
And so anytime I had a hunger cue that was not right before anyway, right before, I still catalog those. But I wrote in red. And so the first ad, I'll never forget it. Actually, no, the first ad I had was a fruit at dinner. And it didn't matter when I was hungry, I was adding a fruit to dinner. That's what I wanted, the symmetry between breakfast and lunch, or lunch and dinner. And so I added that. But the next ad, which I considered like the first organically addition that I made to my food, was I started having hunger cues, and I'm talking to my maintenance guide about it, saying I'm having hunger cues and I don't, I'm not sure what to do, because at the beginning of this, you guys, you have to understand, I didn't trust my body. I felt like I was just writing crap down and like, okay, my limbs are fine. I have saliva, it's present. And I'm like, I didn't buy any of it. Like I was just writing it down. And she's like, just keep going. You'll trust it. You'll know, you will understand. And so the first ad that I made, I'm like, I'm having hunger cues, but I don't, I don't know what to do with that. She's like, well, when are you having the hunger cues? So I go back and I look in my body journal and I was like, oh, before dinner, before dinner, before dinner. So I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I need to add something to lunch. And so I added a grain to lunch. And even that, she didn't tell me what to add. She's like, what is your body telling you that you need? And I came to it all myself. So I didn't use a chart. I didn't use any books. It was
Well, and she's talking
just
about a chart because in Bright Line Eating, there is a chart of food, and a lot of people will use that chart to delineate when how in what order they're going to add things. And when the coaches coach, a lot of times if people are like, I don't know what to add, that's the first thing they do is they say,
add a protein
go
to
to the show, go
breakfast.
add a protein to breakfast because
Yeah.
that's the first thing on the chart. So, and I think that there is some thought to what's on that chart. I don't think it's not just like willy-nilly put together,
Mm-mm.
but I didn't do anything by that chart like of maintenance ads. So I don't, like to me, I also listened to my body and what I was felt like I was wanting, what my body was wanting and needing in those moments. But I think that that's really interesting because I think some people they just can't make those decisions on
Right.
their own. They feel like they really have to have something regimented in order for their peace. Like this isn't like a value judgment on people who can't make these decisions. It's just like their peace can get so thrown off by having to decide what kind of food, extra food they want or extra
And
food
where
adding
and
and where,
when
and then
and
it's just like tell me what to
mhm.
do, and then that's what they do. And again, like I think it's well thought out and makes sense for a lot of people the way they have the ads put together.
And it's funny
So
because after all was said and done with all my ads that were very out of order of all that, pretty much because I have quite a few ads, it happened to be the same thing of like the first, I don't know, I think I have 10 ads or 12 ads or
yeah,
something. And it was almost perfectly what is listed there. It was just different orders and I added it when I wanted to add it. So that made me laugh too.
yeah.
So, but it's funny because I'm learning to listen to my body. I'm doing this body journal before a meal, after a meal. How full do you feel after the meal? Are you stuffed? Are you are barely full? All these cues. And so one time, and this was kind of early on, normally I met with my maintenance guide after breakfast. We had a 7:30 meeting and I had breakfast and then I finished and then we had our meeting and we went on. And one week, for some reason I was having a late lunch and I needed to, I didn't want to eat breakfast too early because I was going to feel less hungry. So I pushed back my breakfast to eat later in the day.
Mm.
And so we still had our meeting at 7:30, but I hadn't eaten breakfast yet. And so my maintenance guide is talking to me and we're telling, we're having this whole conversation and I'm like, Emily, I can't hear what you're saying. I can't concentrate on what you're saying because all I'm thinking about is how hungry I am. And she's like, oh my God, that's amazing. I'm like, what is amazing about that? I feel like it's horrible. She's like, your concentration level is a hunger cue, Patty. When you can't concentrate, that's a hunger level. So I want you to now start cataloging your concentration level before and after each
You're
meal.
like, oh great, one more thing.
Right, right. So, but I thought and it was cool because everyone's hunger cues are
Yep.
different. And it was clear to her and she was so excited about it. It was really kind of a cool moment.
Yeah.
And so,
I
yeah,
and I think that it sounds to me like, and because I never did this myself, but it sounds to me like for you, what happened during this exercise was you learned to trust yourself and your body again, and that
absolutely.
you're like, okay, I can decide when I'm hungry, what I'm hungry for, and speaking of all this, like being people who are in maintenance, it's like food has to continue to move around, guys. Like it doesn't stay stagnant. Like I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm gonna get to maintenance, I'll settle on
Make
this
my ads
maintenance,
and
and
that's
then
it.
I'm,
I'm
and I'll be
done.
done. But it's like, no, I mean, depending on like activity level, age, like, I mean, there's so many things that can go into why you need to have the food you need to have. And so, I mean, like you've recently done a lot of switching around of your food too, and talking about like you're eating for, basically for your health needs now,
Hmm.
which you weren't necessarily doing before. You were eating for,
Satiety.
satiation, yeah,
Yeah.
satiation, but not for like what's the best like optimal like
Right.
healthful way to eat. So, and I think that that's just the evolution of this too. Like that's, the evolution is like okay, I'm healing myself from this food, from addiction. Like as I'm healing myself from my addiction, learning to trust my body again, learning to how to feed myself appropriately. Okay, now that I figured that out, now I can move on to like what's the most optimal, like what's the most optimal healthful way for me to eat. And again,
It's
this is
different for
everybody,
everybody.
everybody's different. And it's like, even like Patty and I, we eat together every meal almost, but we still eat differently. Like she has different health needs than I do when it comes to her food, and different, satiety needs than I do when it comes to her food. So we just, we eat differently.
Mhm.
So that's, yeah.
Yeah. I did want to add one other thing too, because as I'm doing the journal, I thought I went too low in my weight, and I think I did. And I got on and I started talking to Joanne Campbell Rice.
I think she went too low on her weight too, but that's just me.
Yes. But I got on an accountability call and I was talking to Joanne, and she basically said, some people never learn to trust their hunger cues again, and their hunger cues are never on board. And she goes, I'm worried about your energy level. Like you need to eat because food is fuel,
Hmm.
and that's all we use it for now. And so she wanted me to look at my energy level. So that's another thing I added to my body journal, and I kept journaling all my hunger cues, but I added energy level in there too. So concentration and energy level were the two last things that I added to that. And it just helped me. And it's funny because was it my second BLE road trip?
Yes.
I think because my first one, I definitely was journaling, and I kept journaling because I hadn't really totally landed the plane
You
yet.
were not journaling in your second road
No,
trip.
my
Yeah.
second road trip, I did not do my body journal, and I thought I'll get back to it when I came home. But I'd gotten to the place where I knew I had enough food to satisfy my body and its needs at the time, and I wasn't having any hunger cues, and I I could trust that I would feel the hunger cues and then notice them, and without journaling, because it's 9 times a day. Okay, if you're on the 3 meal plan, that's nine
Yeah.
times a day, which, okay, I could do it in 30 seconds. It got very quick, like 5 lines, and I could get it done. So it's not a long, laborious process, but it's still 9 times a day getting your journal out and making sure you had your journal, because I was working at the casino at the time. So I would take lunch to work, and my body journal was right in my lunchbox, and I would journal before and after and 2 hours after. She would love it. I don't think you ever saw it.
Alarms. No.
Yeah, but I have a lot of alarms because I have alarms for everything. One went off right when we were recording our last episode. But the hardest part for me when I was body journaling was the 2 hours after the meal, because you just time goes on and you're done with the meal and you're not thinking about food and you're not thinking about journaling. So I would set an alarm every time I finished each meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like, oh, if I finished breakfast at 6 a.m., I would set an alarm for 8 a.m. It said, check your body, check your body, check your body. I must have had, because I would never
She
finish,
never
I never
she
finished
never
the
gets
meals
rid
at
of
the
it.
same
I know, but
time.
she never gets rid of alarms. Like, let's just put that, like, so I think we've talked about this here, but we'll talk about it again. I'm a person that has one alarm. I have one.
One
I
alarm.
change the time to the time that it needs to go off. That's what I do. She has an alarm for every second of the day, and then she just turns them on willy-nilly, and then they go on at all hours of the day and night. And
People in Hawaii got some taste of it, but I did turn a lot of the alarms off for that.
she purposely turned off majority of her alarms, like on the plane on the way there, and people in Hawaii still were like, "Why is Patty's phone going off?"
Yeah. And then I set an alarm to remind myself to turn back all my alarms, because if it doesn't, if I don't get an alarm, it's not happening. Okay. It's just not happening.
Welcome to my world, people.
So, but I had a
Welcome to
lot
my
of
world.
check your body alarms
Yeah.
because I never finished the meal
But
at the
that's a
same
good way. It's a
time.
good way to remind yourself. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and be like, don't set an alarm. Of course, set an alarm, like remind yourself to do it. And I think it's one of those things too, that it's not, you're not committing to do the body journal for the rest of your life. Like that's
No,
not,
I gave it up on my second road trip, and I
yeah,
never, I never picked it up again because I started trusting myself and my
right.
hunger
And I
cues.
think that that's the reality, is that it's a tool that you can use, especially I think moving into maintenance is a really good time to use it, but also just, to learn what hunger really looks like for you. Because I know that there's a lot of people within the program that are like, I'm hungry. And I'm like, and then the next question that comes all the time is, what is it really?
Right.
Like, is
Is
it
it
really
emotional
hungry?
hunger?
Is it emotional hunger? Are you having an emotion? Are you, and it's like,
Are you bored?
yeah, and it's like we do that because we're food addicts and
Eat over everything.
we have that, we have the historical data of being people who eat through our emotions or whatever the case might be. And so
Through
not
our
really,
happiness, through our sadness,
yeah,
through our grief, through our everything.
yeah, so not really understanding what like real hunger looks like, but also like you have to come to a place of trusting your own body and you have to be able to say, this is what hunger is and this is what hunger is to me. And when this happens, I need to appreciate that and then, move accordingly. So
Yeah.
I think that that's the moral of the story. Is that, this was sparked by a conversation that happened on the accountability call. And it just like people just, I think that people just struggle with that. And I haven't seen anything clearly laid out within the program of like how to start trusting your hunger again. I think this is one of the ways that it's a good tool. It's just a good tool.
And it's not even, and it's trusting your hunger, yes, but it's also trusting that your body knows what it needs. Like, what is your body telling you that you need when you're making an ad? And that was something also that I listened to my body to add those to make those ads. And so that's when, I had a buddy that was like, "Oh, you're not going by the chart. You have to go by the chart. You have to go by the chart." I'm like, "I'm not going by the chart. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not going by the chart. I'm going to listen to my body and trust that my body knows." Because, it's like when you're a mother, nobody's going to love your child like you love your child. Nobody's going to know your body like you know your body. And the bottom line is that's the program that I want to get to. I want to trust my body. I want to trust my hunger cues, and I want to feed my body exactly what it needs to maintain a weight that is healthy.
Yeah. And make decisions from your most authentic self.
Yeah. And I just told Megan this earlier, is that because, we keep our journals. Like, I have my journal when I started BLE. The first year I journaled every day and multiple times a day. And it's something that I'll read again, maybe I should even on my anniversary just read that journal because it's amazing. And I'm not that person anymore. And to read that is huge. But when I moved up here, I had all my body journals and I had a composition book and I think I had 3 or 4 or 5 of them. And I'm like, I'm never going to read these again cover to cover. Like, it's not something that I'm going to sit down and do. And so I discarded them. I don't have any of my body journals anymore. And it was a big portion of my life. I did it for about a year, I think, maybe just under a year. Or just over, I'm not sure, but it was a lot. But I do have pictures of some because people throughout the years, when I had them, asked me about them, and I took pictures of, some pages that had red cues and some other ones. So I have some pictures of them, and I'm more than happy to share them if you, want to reach out and give you some idea. But the bottom line is you need to find your hunger cues, and it's different for everyone else, for everyone. So. It's a body journal.
Okay. Nothing else to say.
I don't think so.
Okay.
It's bedtime.
It is bedtime. And that's our episode, guys. We will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye. Are we gonna do our journals?
Yeah, we have to do our
I know
journals.
we do.
Eyes unavailable.
They're open.
No, they're unavailable. Oh, you're all pouty. Eyes unavailable.
All right, I'm gonna pick this up
Okay.
and get journals.
Okay. And that's the show. Thank you for tuning in. If you would like to contact us, you can email us at pattyandmegan@gmail.com or hit us up on any of our socials. Have a beautiful, bright day.